Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you 5 books that I think you need to read in 2022. So these were mostly books that I read back in 2021 last year that I think will really stand out for me, and I think a lot of you will really enjoy them. So some of these are like newer releases that came out in 2021 and some of them were a little bit older, but I still feel like these are like the standout books that I think you need to read this year. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, this is a book that I think will hit home for basically everyone because it does like kind of shadow and show a lot of parallels between kind of our current world, you know, and like our current state of the world and what was going on at this point in time. And it is The Orphan Collector by Ellen Marie Wiseman. So the premise of the story is that it takes place during the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918, and we follow a German immigrant named Pia who is kind of growing up around this time. So with her father overseas fighting in the war, she and her mother are left to care for her twin infant brothers. And so when Pia's mother passes away from the Spanish flu, Pia is kind of the one who has to take care of her brothers. And so when she goes out to try to get some food for them, she comes back and they are taken. And so basically this story chronicles her kind of like, I don't even know, her like kind of progression into trying to find out what happened to her brothers. And so I think this one is really interesting, not only the premise of this, because you do get the perspective of the person who took, you know, the twins, and she is like a horrible villain. I think she's very well written, and I think you can draw a lot of, you know, similarities to this kind of stereotype of a character who's very xenophobic, who's racist, all these things. Like a lot of the kind of racism and xenophobia that we've kind of seen throughout this pandemic, I feel like are very well representative in here. And it shows that these themes around human history are very cyclic, and I think it was really well written. Just drawing the parallels between kind of this pandemic and what we've kind of gone through over these past 2 years have been really interesting to see, and the author does not shy away from sugarcoating and just really showing like what this was like she's not afraid to kind of show you the harsh reality of this pandemic. And I think it is something that now that this is something that we've all gone through, I think it just adds a new perspective. But this book is like heavy subject matter, so just be kind of aware of that. But again, I think this is something with kind of our really like our perspectives now. I think it's interesting to kind of read this with like that point of view now. So this is a book that I wouldn't have picked up just given by the title, and I'm very much kicking myself for that because this book was honestly amazing. And this book actually my friend recommended it to me, and so I really kind of fell in love with it, and I think you guys will really enjoy it as well. In addition, it also has very important themes as well, and it is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby DeRay. And this follows a girl named Aduni who is growing up in a very small I think it's Nigerian town or village, yeah, Nigerian village, and her mother has passed away several years ago. And so when she turns 15, her father basically auctions her off to this man in exchange for, you know, some money or like a dowry, something like that. And so Aduni doesn't want that, and she ends up running away and ends up working as a maid for this very wealthy, affluent family. But Aduni wants more with her life. She wants to find her, what she calls her louding voice, and she believes that she'll get her louding voice if she is given access to an education. She wants to be able to educate herself and learn things in order to stand up for those who don't have a voice, and it kind of goes off from there. But I think this like book is really interesting because throughout like the chapters you do get like little like fun facts about Nigeria that kind of help you understand the kind of the political cultural like hierarchy that is kind of set up in here and prevalent. And Aduni is such a character that you can't help but root for her. I feel like she has to persevere through so much, and it's so hard to see her go through all these things, especially with how she's treated, but she is just so determined in, you know, wanting to get an education that you just can't help admire her passion and her perseverance. And I think this is a book that is very important. Not only does it show the importance of, you know, having, you know, a voice and standing up for yourself and others who don't have the opportunity to do so, but it also highlights the importance of education, giving women access to education. And I think this is really interesting because it does take place during our current times, and you wouldn't think this type of thing is still kind of going on for, like, that's very kind of, you know, like very much kind of old school thinking. I think it's very interesting to see that these kind of social and cultural constructs are still kind of going on today in the modern world. So I think it's very interesting to kind of see that. But yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy this book. Like I said, the title is a little bit like, I don't know, like I wasn't really interested in the title, but the story in here is amazing. So this is just a series that I just can't help to always talk about for you guys. So I apologize for those of you who watched a lot of my videos because I just talk about this series a lot. It is the Inspector Gamache series by Louise Penny. This is my favorite series of all time, hands down. And over kind of the course of the pandemic, really, I marathoned this series, and so I'm all caught up now. But I think like this is a series that I cannot stress enough that I feel like so many of you will enjoy. And what better than to have a series that you can marathon throughout 2022, because we're still only like, you know, 3 months into it, so you have time. It is doable. But there's something just really special about this series. It takes place in Quebec, and we follow Inspector Gamache, who is head of the homicide department in Montreal, and a lot of the kind of murders that take place involve this town called Three Pines, which is very much reminiscent of Stars Hollow, that small, like the small town feel. And it's just, I think this is such a very special series. There's a lot of important themes of like dark versus light, like good versus evil, found family, importance of love. Like I think all those things is really interesting. And the most current book that came out in the second half of 2021 kind of dealt with a post-COVID world. So it was very interesting reading a book, because I haven't read a book that has like dealt with COVID, which I think is just really interesting to see. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of like wishful thinking, just kind of where we are now. But this is a series that I think a lot of you will really enjoy, and what better than to kind of spend the year marathoning a, you know, fantastic series. So this is a psychological thriller that I think a lot of you will enjoy, and this definitely was a standout for me. And it is The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. This is one that kind of took me surprised because the synopsis sounded really interesting, but as you get kind of further into the book, you realize this is just way more complex and kind of, you know, it's like very unique, I think. And so it follows two twin sisters, one twin, like kind of when they were younger, there was this event that took place that has kind of scarred them forever. And so we see these twins as adults. And so, and I want to say Fern is the one who works at the library, and when she finds out that her twin sister Rose isn't able to have a child, she decides that she is going to have a child to give to her sister, and it kind of goes off from there. But you can kind of see how there you get the perspective of Rose told through kind of diary entries, and then Fern kind of present day, and you just see the complexities of sisters, kind of unreliable narrators, so many different things. And I think it's just best to kind of go into this not really knowing too much. Like I think you just kind of need to know that basic synopsis and just kind of dive right in. This one was so interesting because you do kind of figure out like what is going on, and so you, the narrator, is kind of like figuring out with Fern, and it's just interesting to see kind of getting those diary entries in addition to kind of the present day narration, I think it makes this really interesting and unique. And like I said, it's just one that I think you need to experience and just dive right in and not really know too much. But this one also is like fairly short too, so that makes it a pretty quick read. And lastly, this is just a standout historical fiction, and it's very much different than kind of the popular like World War II, World War I kind of historical fiction. This one is a little bit different, and it is Sunflower Sisters by Martha Hall Kelly. This is the third book in the Caroline Faraday series, I guess you could say. So it follows this. It's basically a fictionalized story about real life women and their contributions to different wars. So the first book, Lilac Girls, follows Caroline during World War II. The second book, Lost Roses, follows Eliza, who's Caroline's mother during World War I. And then we follow their aunts during the Civil War. And I think because this takes place during the Civil War, it's a little bit different. Like, I feel like I haven't read a lot of historical fiction that takes place in this kind of era, so it made it something unique, something different. But what really stands out for this author is her ability to weave in 3 different narratives, but to do so in a way that doesn't feel like you're slow, like the plot is kind of discombobbled, like disjointed. It flows really well. I feel like it keeps the narration going. And I think that's what makes this author so unique. And even though it is technically part of like a series, you don't necessarily need to read them in order. And I feel like a lot of you guys will really enjoy this. So we follow Georgie, who is one of the kind of, you know, family members of the Faradays, and she wants to become a nurse to help the North fight the South during the Civil War. And then we get a slave and slave owner perspective, and I think it's really interesting. It does draw a lot of kind of, you know, racism themes that have been, you know, present throughout human history for forever basically. So it was very interesting seeing a lot of the themes in here and apply it to the similar kind of movements that we've seen recently, especially with like George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. I think this is very interesting to see how a lot of these themes and, you know, rhetoric are very much, again, like cyclic throughout history, and just seeing how history just repeats itself in different ways. And I think this is very interesting and a very thought-provoking read. So I think you guys would really enjoy this. Like I said, it's really a series. I'm sad it's over. I'm curious to see what she starts next, but like I said, I love anything she writes. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your like books that you think people need to read in 2022 are, and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.